So that's typically a slide fit. It's not really a press fit so that you can do this kind of repair. If you find that armature isn't, fairly tight, there could be a problem with wear on the steel of the armature. It's not very common, but if it's really loose when it's going inside and out of the bearing, it really should be just a slide fit. All right, so I'm joined here with Miguel. We're in our repair shop here at City Floor Supply, and essentially what we're going to do is go over how to remove a gearbox from a buffer and the common repairs to look for when you're having issues with your drive plate, those kinds of things. So one of the most common problems from the gearbox is the interaction between the armature, which is inside the motor that turns, apply electricity to it, it turns, and it also will spin this coupling here, and with this coupling turning, with this slot in the armature, it joins the gearbox to turn the gear assembly, which then drives your clutch. On this RS-16 DC, what we see as far as common repairs after hours and hours and months, years and years of use will be typically this coupling shearing off. If you hit something stuck up in the floor, maybe like a pipe or something on your buffer block, these are meant to fail. And the reason I say that is you don't want this to not fail and then your failure taking place inside this gearbox. You have a ring gear in here, you have a pinion gear, and then some planetary gears, and this is all casted, and those teeth can break off. So you do want this piece to fail and not the gearbox. In order to get this assembly off, we do have to take the motor apart. So we take the field, which is the outside of the motor, we take the armature or rotor, which is the inside, and then the top comes off, and we'll go through all of that. And that is to access this set of screws that are located under the armature in the chassis on this plate. Once those are out, you'll be able to drop this out and replace the coupling. This one is a little more involved as far as taking the motor apart, but from here I'll let Miguel take over, kind of give you an idea of how it's assembled and disassembled. And that's the coupling.
The coupling is two different sides.
Right.
One tiny and the other one side is bigger.
Yeah, you can't mix them up. The larger one won't go in the gearbox. Right, so when you have this apart, you want to check the bearing that he just replaced. Make sure that it's in good shape. If you have it apart, you might as well replace it and put a new one on. I would suggest that you also check, because you have the armature out, is that you also check the bearing at the top that's just underneath the top housing by your stationary switch. Make sure that your rotating mechanism, the centrifugal switch, is operating. That's actually another repair. These screws, I've seen them sheared off. The coupling doesn't break, but something grabs in between the gearbox, and the gearbox shifts, and shears all the bolts off. I've seen that before too. In that case, your gearbox is just going to fall out. And typically it'll come off with your drive block. So that's typically a slide fit. It's not really a press fit so that you can do this kind of repair. If you find that armature isn't, fairly tight, it could be a problem with wear on the steel of the armature. It's not very common, but if it's really loose when it's going inside and out of the bearing, it really should be just a slide fit. So now when we take these apart, we'll typically mark,
Yeah, right. I mark it right.
where the frame for the field has come off of the chassis, just so we can realign the top plate, and the screws go all the way through here, all the way down to the chassis. And those are the screws. So that's just like ahead of time before you start taking everything apart, particularly before you take the stator or the field off. You want to mark it where it connects to the chassis, just to give you an idea. So just to recap what we did here. Essentially, we took the field off, we took the armature out. That allowed us access to the retaining screws for the gearbox. Once we had the gearbox apart, we checked the coupling, we checked the bearing, and then we also checked this top bearing, make sure that this centrifugal switch is operating correctly. So all of those components in the gearbox assembly, that's how you're going to check it. If the failure is in the gearbox itself, that's something that you'll probably have to replace. But again, to get to those retaining screws, you have to take the field off, you have to take the armature out in order to get past the coupling and take a look at that. So if this repair, if you find it too much to do at your shop or in the field, you can certainly give us a call. But again, all these parts are typically in stock. This would be the most complex repair because you're really removing, essentially the motor assembly in order to get to that gearbox. If you find that the gearbox has come off with your drive block, then this repair is going to be necessary. So again, if it's inside the gearbox, or if this repair is too much that you think you can't do it in the field, just give us a call. We'll either step you through it or get it in here and get it in for repair. So if you have any questions with regard to this repair, any of the parts involved in this repair for the gearbox, you can give us a call at 800-737-1786 or go to cityfloorsupply.com and you can look up parts by model. This just happens to be an RS-16 DC from Clark.